Okay. Aleph Ket. Just as with two, if one of them is found to be a kinsman or disqualified witness, their testimony is void. So too with three. If none of them is found to be a kinsman or disqualified witness, their testimony is void. How do we know that this is so? Even for 100, to teach this it states witnesses. Rabbi Yossi, in regard to what is said, in regard to capital cases, but in regard to civil cases, the testimony is established through the remaining witnesses. Rebbe says both in civil cases and in capital cases, but only if they warn them. If they did not warn them, what should two brothers do who saw someone commit a murder? Question. Sorry, his question.
That's right. Yeah.
All right. If two saw him from this window and two saw him from that window, and one in the middle warned him, if some of them saw each other, then they are one set of witnesses. If not, there are two sets of witnesses. Therefore, if one of them is found to be a Zolman, both he and they are executed, and the second is exempt. Rabbi Yossi says they are not executed unless his two witnesses warn him. As it is said, by the testimony of two witnesses. Another explanation, by the testimony of two witnesses, that a Sanhedrin should not hear testimony from the mouth of an interpreter. If one was sentenced and fled and then came before that very same court, they do not overturn his sentence. Wherever to stand up and declare, we testify concerning so-and-so that he was sentenced in so-and-so's court, and so-and-so's were his witnesses, he is executed. The Sanhedrin functions both in the Holy Land and outside the Holy Land. A Sanhedrin that executes once in the cemetery is called a destroyer. Elazar ben Azariah says 1 in 70 years. Reb Tarfon and Rebbe Kiva say, had we been on a Sanhedrin, the person would have never been executed. Rabbi Shimon ben Il says they too would have increased the number of murderers in Israel. It's interesting. What do they do what they do in a case like this if they had someone who signs? That's an interpreter. Someone who signs with their hands and does all that stuff.
Right. Well, I mean, if the Sanhedrin, then I presume that you could have somebody on the Sanhedrin who understands sign language. Hey, my wife has just landed. Yay!
Oh, very good. She was far away.
She was in the Philippines.
Yeah. Wow. Did she bring back pineapples or anything? Or yeah.
I brought back pineapples from South Africa.
They did. They let you through?
Well, they didn't open my bags.
Yeah.
So,
where'd you hide them? Where'd you hide them?
It's a secret. I have to stash them up my church. No, never mind. Okay. Elohim Hagolin.
We're great when you put the X-ray. Okay.
Yeah. Elohim Hagolin. So now the Makkos switches to the subject of galus, when you have an accidental murderer. Okay, so the halacha is that if somebody accidentally kills somebody through negligence, what we might call what do they call it? Sort of criminal negligence,
right?
Or what's the other word for homicide? Unintentional homicide, but nonetheless, in South Africa the term was culpable homicide.
Culpable.
Yeah. Which is not, so this is talking about somebody who was negligent, and there are several types of shogegim, right? There's a shogeg gamor. It's somebody who had no intention whatsoever, and it wasn't even negligence, right? But he could have been a little more careful. So, for example, if he had a stone in the pocket of his clothing, and which he knew about, but he forgot. And while he was climbing, the stone fell out and onto somebody. So that's such a low level of okay. So that over there, so that kind of negligence he's culpable for, right? He should have been careful about the fact that he's got a stone, and he would be fired for galus. Okay. Or there's a shogi that's close to anus. So when it's so out of the ordinary, that he would never have thought that this could be cause any damage. So, for example, somebody is standing out in the woods and there's nobody else. He doesn't have anybody else around. People generally don't come there, and Like let's say he's just like standing on the edge of a cliff and seeing how far he can throw stones. And it turns out there was somebody underneath him, and who would never normally have been there, and he killed somebody there. So that's karb ones, okay, and that he doesn't need to go into galus for, okay. And then there's a shogeg that's karb amazed when it's such a bad mistake that it's almost like he did it deliberately, okay. So for example, what is he doing? He's running with a sharp knife in his hand, running through a crowd, and then oops, he slipped and stabbed somebody. Now that's just like ridiculous. Nobody would do that. No sane person is going to go running through a crowd carrying a knife and expect not to cause damage. So there we say he's not chayav galus because galus isn't going to be a kapara for him.
Right.
Galus is only a kapara for somebody who did it accidentally, not through carelessness, not through recklessness. Like,
what would happen? What would happen if he ran through the crowd, fell on his knife?
He himself fell on his knife.
Yeah.
What are you asking?
I mean, and then he gets better. He didn't die, but he gets better.
Right.
So he can't.
And then what?
They can't do anything to him. They can't, accuse him of being reckless.
What, that he did something to himself? I mean, that's his own
Right.
problem. Why would anyone?
It's still a reckless move on his part. He could have hurt someone.
Okay, but that's not he's not going to go into galus for almost killing himself. Galus is for actually killing somebody. So, yeah, so that doesn't work. Okay, so that's just our background to galus, is that it's got to be somebody who was careless, not somebody who was reckless, and not somebody who was careful, but like somebody else, was in a place where they shouldn't have been. Okay, so Elohein Hagolin. So this is somebody who gets exile, Hahoreg Nefesh Bishgaga, somebody who kills somebody carelessly. Hayam Agel B'Magela. Okay, so for example, let's say he's got a roller. He's rolling a stone on the roof. Okay, in order to smooth in order to flatten the stones, right? He's using something to flatten the plaster at least. But nafal alav v'haragtiv, and the stone fell out of his grip, and it rolled off the roof and onto somebody else and killed him. Okay, so that's a classic case of chayav galus. Hay mashal shel chavis, and or he was rolling a barrel, and he was rolling a barrel downhill, and the barrel slipped from his grip and it fell on somebody else and it killed him. Or haya yored b'sulam, or he himself was climbing down a ladder and he missed a step, and his own body fell onto somebody else and killed them. This is somebody. These are the standard cases where somebody should have taken greater precautions. He accidentally killed somebody, and now he's chayav to go into galus. Okay. Aval, if he was pulling the stone uphill, the nafla and it fell down. Or he's pulling the barrel upwards, so he's got a rope and he's dragging it upwards. And then the rope broke. The nafla and fell onto somebody. Okay. He's climbing up the ladder, and then he slips and falls onto somebody. So this is considered like an ones. Why? When he's doing something that's moving downwards, then you got to know, you got to be careful, because your general motion is downwards, and now you've got to hold on tight. When somebody's pushing somebody upwards, he really doesn't expect that he's going to slip so badly that the thing's now going to fall downwards. So that's called a shogeg karv ones, and therefore he would be patur from galus, because it's much less severe. Your general rule is anything that happens while he's going downwards, he goes into galus. And if it's not downwards, then he doesn't get a galus. Now, let's say we're talking about the woodcutter, the classic case that's given in the Torah, the exact example. Okay, nishmata barzel mikato v'harag. So now he's got his axe, and the metal on top of the axe, that's the blade of the axe. And while he's chopping, the metal of his axe flies off the handle and kills somebody. Okay, so now we have an interesting machlokes tanaim over here, because why? What's the pasuk? So the pasuk says, "Nashal habarzel min ha'etz," and the metal breaks off from the wood. Okay, now there's a problem, is that it's actually ambiguous. If the metal broke off from the wood, do you think your first way of reading it that you think is what? What's the wood referring to?
Tree.
The tree that he's chopping.
He's cutting down a tree.
Right. No? So that's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. So if he chops onto the wood and the metal broke off from the wood, then that's talking about a wood chip splintered off and flew off and killed somebody. That's the way Rebbe reads the pasuk in the Torah.
Mm-hmm.
The Chachamim say no. The eitz is the handle of the axe, that the metal flew off from the axe. Right? When it says that the metal broke off from the wood, means that the metal flew off from the wood. It itself flew off from the wood. So you see that the pasuk is could be read both ways.
Wait, if he
Nishmat v'nashal habarzel min ha'etz. Is nashal transitive or is it intransitive? Is it the metal that's flying off, or does the metal cause the wood to fly off? And apparently it's not 100% clear whether this is a transitive verb or an intransitive.
So if he's chopping the tree and the metal falls off.
Right. In other words, the blade of the axe flies off.
Right. So, so it's his action hitting the tree.
So it's just because he's got well, it could be either way. It could be that I think we may have a discussion about whether it's at the up blow or the down blow. It could be that it hits on a tree and the impact breaks it off and sends it flying.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So the question is here. Rebbe sees that in Rebbe's eyes, this pasuk is talking about the chip of wood. But if it's the head of the axe breaking off, Rebbe's going to say, "What are you talking about? Like, if somebody's got a loose head on his axe, that's a karev lemezid. That's the guy who's running with a knife through the crowd."
Right. You should have checked it before.
You should have checked it. That's a shogeg. That's karev lemezid, and you'd be pater for that. So Rabbi Omer eno gole. He doesn't get. So if the metal flies off from the handle, he doesn't get galos. That's karev lemezid. Chachamim gole. No, said Chachamim. That is the case in the Torah. Where the Torah says he must go to galos. Mina eitz hamitzbaker. But what about the case where he chopped the wood and a wood chip flew off and killed somebody? Rabbi Omer gole says that's the case in the Torah, is where the wood chip flew off and killed somebody. That's what the Torah is talking about. Chachamim omrim eino gole. No, that's a karev leones.
It isn't the case in the Torah where it said the handle flows off or the head falls off.
Well, that's the thing, is that they're arguing about what does it say in the Torah, because the verse could be interpreted in two ways. So the Chachamim interpreted that it's talking about the wood chip, and the Rebbe interprets it that it's talking about the other way. No, the Rebbe says it's talking about the wood chip, and Chachamim say it's talking about the head of the axe.
Okay, you talk about a wood chip. Chip is usually a little piece.
Yeah, that's right. So that's where Chachamim was saying, well, a little piece like that. It's so unlikely that anyone would kill somebody by chopping a piece of wood and the wood flies out and kills somebody. If that happens, that's karev leones. You can't blame it for that happening.
Chip would have to have a point and go into the eye or something something that would
yeah.
kill him.
So you're talking about a freak accident.
Yeah.
I'm saying that's a freak accident. You don't go to galus for a freak accident. But Rebbe says that's what it says in the Torah, that if a wood chip flies off, he requires galus. So you see the argument over here between them.
The pasuk says wood chip or it says handle. I thought it said the hammer.
So again, that's the thing, is that it's ambiguous. The pasuk itself could be read both ways, and the machlokes between Rabbi and Chachamim is, what does the pasuk say? Because the words could be interpreted both ways. It's not 100% clear which way it goes. Okay. And does it say? I don't think there's a. Okay, so the so the Mishnah, the commentary over here doesn't tell us what the halacha is. I assume that it's Chachamim versus Rebbe means that Chachamim get the halacha. I don't know if Archibald tells us.
But here it says, this is the rule for any death which occurs in the course of descent.
No, that's in the previous case. We're talking about the end of the Mishnah now.
But should the iron fly off its handle?
Yes.
Rebbe says he is not exiled, but if we come and say he is exiled from the tree that is being chopped. So maybe it's that part that's from the tree that's being chopped. That's the wood chip.
Yeah.
The iron is the head of the axe.
Well, the iron is definitely the head of the axe. There's no question. But the question is it the iron that's killing the person, or is it the chip that he chopped off that killed the other person? And that's the machlokes. Does Archibald tell us whether we rule like Rebbe or like Chachamim?
Still talking this is so about the axe, but I don't see. Of course. Thus he translates the verse. Rebbe explains to translate the verse to mean that the iron makes fly from the tree. That is, that the axe blade causes chips to fly, and one of these chips hits its companion, killing him.
Yeah.
It does not, if you refer to the axe blade slipping off the handle. That's the Ron. And when the axe blades did fly off, it would be considered negligent, since obviously the axe blade was loose and that smashing, and that is something which he should have been checked. In that case, he would not be liable in exile, because exile would not be sufficient to expiate his sin. On the other hand, if he checked the axe blade and found it to be secure and it still came loose and killed, it would be deemed an unforeseeable accident, and again, exile would not be prescribed. Yeah, that's what I see.
Mm-hmm. Okay, don't worry about it. So Tachlis, it's the machlokes is how to interpret the pasuk, and from there it comes out to which offense he gets galus for.
This just says whether, yeah, all right. You have to really look at this. I never thought of it that way. The chip.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Base has Zorek Even Lirishus Harabim the Harag. So a guy throws a rock into the Rishus Harabim and kills somebody. Okay, so he gets galus for that. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, im he says, however, if he was throwing it into an open space, and then after he threw it, while the stone is in the air, some guy sticks his head out the window and puts it in the way of the stone, he says that's patur, because why he learns it, not because it was less negligent, but because of the drasha of the pasuk. It says matzah Israel ehuva meis. It must be that the thing that he's throwing found his friend, right? Not that his friend found the rock, that his friend put himself in the path of the projectile. Okay, so it's just it's a technicality why he's patur, not that there's any less negligence for such a thing. Okay, now what happens if he throws the rock into his own chatzer, and it killed somebody who was hanging out in his chatzer? If the person was allowed to be there, so it now hinges on the person's right to be there. So let's say his chatzer is basically the path up to his front door, which is expected. If somebody wants to come and knock on your door, he's got to come through your chatzer. So if he threw something into his chatzer and killed somebody, that's negligence, because you must expect that people are coming to are going to come into your chatzer to knock on your door. But if it's his backyard and nobody should be there, and this guy was using it as an illicit shortcut. It was a shortcut through the chatzer to get somewhere else, and he didn't really have a right of passage. And the guy threw a rock into there and killed him. Says that's considered an honest.
Okay. Sean, could you give me a second? All right.
Yeah, sure.
John, what did you say? I'm sorry.
So what we're saying is that if the person who was killed, did he have the right of passage through that chatzer? If he was there illegally, if he was trespassing, then the Baal Habayis had no reason to assume that there was anyone in his courtyard, and therefore he would be pater. But if he had the right of passage, he has to assume that somebody could be in there, and he has to be careful. So just spelling it out in the Mishna, if he throws it into his chatzer and kills im yesh shusla nizak v'kanes l'sham gole, if he had rights to come in, he gets galus im lav eino gole. Otherwise, he doesn't get galus. Shenemar. But why is it? Because the pasuk gives an example of the two guys sitting in the forest. Okay, why the forest? It must be that both the person who was damaged and the person who damaged had the right to be there. Yatsa chatzer Baal Habayis, that excludes the chatzer of the Baal Habayis, she'ein resush nizak likanesh l'sham, because the person who was damaged had no right to be there. Okay, so therefore he does not get galus. Abba Shalom ma chatavas eitzim reshus yatsa av hamakes bano. He says that furthermore, another lumdus that we have on this is that when somebody, the case of galus is only talking about davar rishus, where you're doing stuff for parnasa or to get food or whatever. So these two guys were out there chopping wood. They weren't involved in a mitzvah. Okay, yatsa av hamakes bano. And he says that gives exemption to a father who was chastising his son, the davar mitzvah, and he hit his son too hard, chas v'shalom, and killed his son. Similarly, a Rebbe who's chastising his students, where it's davar mitzvah, and he goes overboard. The shaliach based in, and also a shaliach based in who's whipping somebody, who's beating somebody who needed Makkos. Okay, and he goes too far and kills the person instead of giving or he adds on. Okay, so the shaliach based in, also because he's involved in the mitzvah, he doesn't get galus for beating him too hard. Okay, yes. So apparently it's a mitzvah to beat your children. Uncomfortable. Mishna Gimel. Ha'av gole al yedei haben. And so what follows over here is that even if the people are close relatives, and the one accidentally kills the other, the father gets galus for killing his son, and the son gets galus for killing his father. Hakol golin al yedei Yisrael. Anyone can get galus for killing a Jew. For Yisrael golin al yedeihen, and Yisrael can get galus for killing them. So who's the hakol? Hakol is coming to include an Eved Knani and even a Kusi, right? A Samaritan. This is in the days before the Kusi was given the status of a goy gamor. Okay, so this is talking. So anyone, even the sort of fringe Jews. So an Eved Ivri is, he's chayav in mitzvahs aseh. Sorry, chayav in mitzvahs lo taseh and mitzvahs aseh she'ein man grama, basically like a woman. Okay, so even the fringe Jews are included in the din of galus. Okay, chutz me'alidei ger toshav. Okay, but who's excluded is a ger toshav who is a non-Jew who's accepted the 7 mitzvahs. Okay, even though we love him and he's allowed to live in Eretz Yisrael, and we encourage him to do good. But nonetheless, if he's involved in an accidental killing, there's no parsha of galus. The ger toshav eno gole ela alidei ger toshav. However, if one ger toshav kills another ger toshav by accident, then he gets galus. Okay. Because the pasuk actually spells out over there that for the stranger. In other words, this is talking about the Noachides. The B'nai Noach. Okay, Hasuma enogole. A blind person also is pater from galus. Why? This is Rabbi Yehuda. Why? A blind person can't get galus because enogole, because the pasuk says Orbachul even asher yamus ba below reus, where he didn't look and see. Okay, that excludes, says Rabbi Yehuda, the person who the person who cannot see. He didn't see you, not somebody who didn't, but he was looking in another place. But it excludes a blind person who can't see anywhere. Okay, that's Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Meir Omer Gole. Rabbi Meir says that's not an exemption. He says Asher Yakeh Israelu Bibli Das. It's half knowing, and knowledge is not something that's particular to a sighted person. So according to Rabbi Meir, even a blind person can get galus. The halacha follows Rabbi Yehuda that a blind person does not get galus. Asone, somebody who hates somebody else, enogole. He does not get galus because if somebody who hates somebody else accidentally killed them, we raise an eyebrow and think accidentally, yeah. So that's on the side of Karav Lamezid. It's not going to be a kapara for him. If somebody is somebody who Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda Omer Hasani Nerag, he says not only that, the Sonai gets executed for killing somebody because it's considered as if he is Mipnei Shehu Kamuad. It's as if he was warned. It's an interesting fringe view. He's a minority view, and he's not going to be the halacha. Excuse me. It's not going to be the halacha, but it's like he's been warned, because if he hates somebody else, then he's got to be particularly careful not to accidentally kill him. Rabbi Shimon Omer, yesh sonei gole v'yesh sonei se'eno gole. Some haters do get galus and some don't. What's the rule? If there's a situation where you could interpret it that he actually intentionally did it, then he does not get the benefit of galus. But if it was something that was clearly accidental, even if he was a soneh, then he still gets galus. So we could come up with examples of each case, like where it's accidental, maybe not. He claims it was accidental, but it might not have been. And if he's a soneh, then we don't give him the benefit of the doubt there. But if it's a situation where there's no way he could have known that he was going to do it, then, or circumstances show it, then he still gets galus. Okay, the halacha says Rekahati is that any soneh who kills bishgaga eino niklat, he does not get accepted into the imiklat. But eino nerag beveis din, he does not get, but he doesn't get executed in beis din for it. So it's like the Tanakama. Okay. Sanhedrin.
I just have to run the room for 1 second. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Just 1 minute. Oh, sorry. Condition. A man betroths a woman by himself or through his agent. A woman is betrothed by herself or through her agent. A man gives his daughter a condition when she is a nara, and by himself through his agent. If one says to a woman, betrothed to me with this date, betrothed to me with this one, if one of them has a vow of a pruta, she is betrothed. If not, she is not betrothed. If he says with this and with this and with this, and there is a vow of a pruta in all of them, she is betrothed. If not, she is not betrothed. If she was eating them one by one, she is not betrothed unless one of them has a vow of a pruta. If a man said to a woman, be betrothed to me with this cup of wine, and it was found to be honey or honey of honey, and it was found to be wine with this dinner of silver, and it was found to be of gold or of gold, and it was found to be of silver on condition that I am a rich man, and he is found to be a poor man or a poor man, and was found to be a rich man, she is not betrothed. Rabbi Shimon says if he deceives her to her advantage, she is betrothed. Be betrothed to me on condition that I am a Kohen, and it was found to be a Levi, or a Levi, and he was found to be a Kohen, or a Nissanite, and he was found to be a Mamzer, or a Mamzer, and he was found to be a Nissanite, a townsman, and he was found to be a city dweller, and a city dweller, he was found to be a townsman, on condition that my house is close to the bathhouse, and it was found to be distant, and it was found to be close, on condition that I have a daughter, or a slave who makes braids. And he does not on condition that I do, and he does not, or on condition that I do not have, and he has. On condition that I have no sons, and he does have. On condition that I have, and he does not have. In all these cases, although she said, I intended to be betrothed to him, nonetheless, she is not betrothed, and the same applies if she deceived him.
Okay.
If one, right?
Yeah, that's 3.
Okay. Base. Yeah.
It's
If traps for animals, birds, or fish were set prior to Yom Tov, one may not take them from on Yom Tov unless he knows that they were trapped before Yom Tov. If there was an incident when a certain Gentile brought fish to Grandma Gamil, and he said, they may be eaten, but I do not want to accept the present from him. If an animal is dangerously ill, one may not slaughter it unless there is enough time during the day to eat an olive-sized piece of its meat roasted. And Rabbi Akiva says even an olive-sized piece of raw meat from the place of the incision, or he slaughtered it in the field, and it may not be brought in from the field to his house on a pole or a litter, and it may be brought in his hand limb by limb. If a firstborn fell into a pit, Rabbi Yehuda says an expert may go down and look at the blemish. If the expert finds that it has a blemish, he may bring it up and slaughter it, but not if he may slaughter it. But if not, he may not slaughter it. Reb Shimon says in any case where the blemish was not detected before Yom Tov, it is not considered to be prepared.
Because the Bechor is, remember, the animal has to have been designated. Even though on Yom Tov it's mutar to shecht, nonetheless, the animal has to have been designated before Yom Tov as an animal that we're going to shecht. And a Bechor can't be designated as ready for shechita unless it's already got a mum.
No. Peah. Okay. Gimel Aleph. The rectile of produce between the olives, Beit Shammai says peah from each one. Beis Hillel says from one for all, and they admit that if the tops of the rows are mixed, then he gives peah from one for all. If a person checkers his field and left moist stalks, Rabbi Akiva says he gives peah from each one. The comments say from one for all, and the sages agree with Rabbi Akiva that if a person sows dill or mustard in 3 places, he gives peah for each one. If a person plucks moist onions for the marketplace and he reserves dry ones for storage time, and he gives peah for these separately, and for these separately, and similarly in the case of beans, and similar in the case of a vineyard, the person who thins gives from what is left, the person who thins gives from what is left for what he left, and the person who plucks from one place gives from what remains for everything.
Okay.
And midos. Okay. Dalet Vav. The Hekel measured 100 amos by 100 amos with a height of 100 amos. The otam was 6 amos. The height of the Hekel was 40 amos. 1 amma for the decoration, 2 amos for the bracing, 1 amma for the ceiling, 1 amma for the pavement, and the height of the upper story was 40 amos. 1 amma was for the decoration, 2 ammas for the bracing, 1 amma for the ceiling, 1 amma for the pavement, 3 ammas for the fence, and 1 amma for the crow chaser. Rabbi Yehuda says the crow chaser was not included in the measure of 100 amos, rather 4 amos was the height of the fence. From the east to the west it measured 100 amos. The wall of the antechamber was 5 amos, and the antechamber was 11 amos. The wall of the Hekel was 6 amos, and its area was 40 amos. The amma traxin, 20 amos. For the chamber of the holies of holies, the western wall of the Hekel was 6 amos, and the cell was 6 amos, and the wall of the cell was 5 amos. From the north to the side, it measured 20 amos, and the northern wall of the winding ramp was 5 amos, and the winding ramp was 3 amos. The northern wall of the cell was 5 amos, and the cell was 6 amos. The northern wall of the Hekel was 6 amos, and its area was 20 amos. The southern wall of the Hekel was 6 amos, and the southern cell was 6 amos. The southern wall of the cell was 5 amos, and the place of lowering the water was 3 amos, and the outer wall of the place of lowering the water was 5 amos. The antechamber extended beyond the Hakel 15 amos to the north and 15 amos to the south, and this was called the chamber of knives. From there they would store the knives. The Hakel was narrow in the back and wide in the front, and in this way was similar to a lion, as it is stated, Ariel, a city where David encamped. Just as a lion is narrow in the back and wide in the front, so too the Hakel was narrow in the back and wide in the front. Hey Olive. The entire courtyard was 180 amos in length, 135 amos in width. From the east to the west, the courtyard measured 187 amos, and the area in which Yisrael walked measured 11 amos. The area in which the Kohanim walked measured 11 amos. The altar measured 32 amos. Between the antechamber and the altar measured 22 amos. The Hakel measured 100 amos, and the 11 amos behind the curtain of the ark cover.
Okay.
Where did these measurements come from? The Torah specifically said that when you make this,
No, it was that was simply the way that that they built it. There was no Torah min hashamayim to say it has to be such and such a size. I mean, the Bayis Sheni was different from the Bayis Rishon.
It wasn't like Mishkan, where they were spelled out.
The Mishkan, of course, was okay. So the Mishkan, there the midas are given in the Torah.
Right.
Okay, so that was exactly done according to the way Hashem said it. But with the Beis HaMikdash, they had a lot more latitude to increase the size, and so it's interesting. Like, given that it's a rishus, why did we have to have an entire Masechta of Mishnayos telling us what the size was of the Beis HaMikdash? Because it's not, when the Bayis Shlishi is built b'meira b'yameinu, it's not necessarily going to follow the same plan as the Bayis Sheni. So interesting. I'm not sure why we have to have a Maseches Medos.
Right.
But that's an interesting. I'll have to Google that question for you.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry for the interruptions, but
okay, no worries. Have a good day.
I'll see you tomorrow, Mr. Shem. Thank you.